Welcome back, and thank you so much for staying tuned to Citizen TV on this 25th day of May 2021. We're just towards the end of the month, and I want us to focus on the latest in the news and reviewing that and what is informing public discourse. And to help us do that, we have the former Senator of Kakamega, Boni Halwale. He hopes to be governor. Good morning, Senator.
Good morning, sir.
We also have VOA of phone, Steve Ogola, an advocate of the High Court. He'll be joining us shortly. Sam Atandi, the Member of Parliament for Alego Songa, is not able to join the show, but it goes on. And we begin from what just happened yesterday, the assumption of office of Chief Justice Martha Koome. And she spoke about the promise that she will be in a position, or she'll be looking forward to implementing, including reducing the backlog to ensure that no case is older than 3 years in the courts. But first, let's listen to what she had to say about these matters and the changes that she'll bring.
I wish to assure you, colleagues, that we will respect and enforce the decisional independence of individual judges and magistrates. But we will also strive to ensure that all those who walk down the corridors of our courts will go home feeling that justice has been their shield and defender.
All right, and let me begin with you, Senator. Of course, it's been quite a process since the 14th of April, when CJ Martha Koome was first interviewed by the JSC, until assuming office yesterday. What do you make of this transition and the promises she's making? What are the chances of success, knowing the difficult situation has been in this country between the three arms of government?
Vibes have been very loud on the fact that the new Chief Justice is a woman. Something which is completely irrelevant. The position of Chief Justice is not gender-based. It is gender-insensitive. It doesn't matter whether you're a woman or a man. The decision you make the decisions of a Chief Justice. Mm-hmm. So the important thing is we are expecting, will Justice Martha Koome continue from where Justice David Maraga left? Namely, Justice David Maraga has clearly demonstrated that a good justice must defend, preserve, and uphold the Constitution. He has done that throughout his 4 years. Number two, he has defended the rule of law. And even more important, the Chief Justice will be expected to defend the independence of the judiciary. If she does those three, then the fact that she's a woman will then become an issue. People will say the woman who outperformed probably the men who had been there since 1963. Yeah.
That's very interesting. And Steve Ogola is obviously joining us via phone. But before we do so, let's listen to what retired Chief Justice David Maraga, alongside Martha Koome, said yesterday. Koome speaking about the vision for the judiciary.
We will guard this independence jealously. We are equally aware that we are accountable. In the delivery of justice, we work with other arms of government and stakeholders. We are conscious that alone as the judiciary, we cannot succeed in delivery of services. My vision of the judiciary is that one that will constructively engage with the other arms of government for the mutual benefit of Kenyans. I see a judiciary which will be a leader in accountability and integrity.
All right, and Steve Ogola, of course, you've been watching these events. We even spoke about it recently when you were on the show. Are you confident that the promise that Justice Koome will defend that independence, but also achieve so many things that she has outlined? Are you confident she'll succeed, and what will it take?
Good morning, Sam. I think first of all is to understand where Chief Justice Martha Koome is coming from. This is a Chief Justice that is properly institutionalized. She has risen through the ranks from the judiciary, and therefore she's likely to have a pragmatic approach unlike someone who is coming from the outside with a view of immediately reforming the judiciary and asserting the independence of the judiciary. Chief Justice Martha Koome is likely to continue deepening Justice Maraga and Chief Justice Emeritus David Maraga's legacy, but she's also likely to have a more pragmatic approach, because one of the niggling challenges the judiciary is facing right now is the deterioration in relationship between the judiciary and the political wing of government, especially the executive. I think all of us understand that it is not beneficial to have an antagonistic relationship between the judiciary and the executive. So the first thing the Chief Justice wants to do is to improve the relationship, what lawyers call interagency or interbranch courtesy, committee, and mutuality, meaning respect for each level of government while also negotiating what must be negotiated. Secondly, the first important task the Chief Justice must attempt to accomplish is the swearing in of the 40 judges. You heard what she said during the interview, that she would not hesitate to negotiate or to reach out to the president. I had a problem with that approach because it appeared that she was going to negotiate on compliance of court orders, but be it as it may, I think she will try whatever means that is available at her disposal to ensure that these 40 judges have been sworn. I think if she achieves that, she should have been able to unlock something what Justice Maraga was unable to do. Thirdly, you remember during questioning of her, during almost all the interviewees, every candidate was asked about their jurisprudential disposition or orientation. What do you believe in? Do you have a non-legal philosophy? I think it will be interesting to watch, because Chief Justice Martha Koome is going to transition us into the next election. Her philosophy, her understanding of politics, the interplay of law and politics, will certainly influence how the presidential election petition is determined. And I think lastly, relates to cases around defilement, and it's interesting to see that for the first time in our history, in the history of our judiciary, now we have the first female Chief Justice. Part of the problem that the country has had, and you saw Justice Chitembwe speak about this during his interview, the problem of implementation of sexual offenses. Because the law says, if you have children, a boy who is 19, that is a young adult, and a girl who is 17, that is a minor, engaging in a relationship and even marrying, some of these children have been arrested and arraigned in court, and judges have applied different standards on what they call case-by-case analysis.
Right.
We would like to see, will the Chief Justice Martha Koome try to harmonize the judicial approach to issues dealing with sexual offenses, because she's likely to be more sensitive to these issues.
Okay, very interesting. Of course, I will be waiting to see, because one of the questions that she was asked by the panelists at the Judicial Service Commission is what would be her jurisprudence and what her contribution to that. So we'll wait to see. But I want us now to switch gears and talk about a little bit of politics, and that is coming from the recent by-elections that were concluded in Juja and Bonchari constituencies, but also in Rurie Ward and a few others scheduled in the coming days. Let's first listen to what transpired at the Juja by-election.
Dongo, ID number 128337271 has been duly elected as a member of National Assembly.
Mjue nikitoka kwa chama ambacho kinachotawala, kulikuwa na intimidations, kulikuwa na shida mingi, nimeharakishwa, lakini hawa viongozi wa PEP na William Samoei Arap Ruto, our deputy president, wamenishikilia na kuhakikisha ya kwamba nafasi hii niko Imbori wa Juja.
I wrote a letter to my party leader, His Excellency the President. I told him that there is a problem, a political problem in this region in terms of our people supporting the government. I even stated issues concerning BBI. the court on Thursday vindicated me, and today the people have also vindicated me.
Ile tunasema katika Hustler Nation sio mambo ya kugawanya keki, ni mambo ya kutengeneza keki zaidi, ndio kila mtu katika hiyo familia aweze kutoshea.
Hii ni mwanzo mpya kwa siasa ya mlima wa Kenya. Watu ya mlima wa Kenya wameamua vile watasonga. Hawataamuliwa na hawataambiwa.
And let me begin with you, Steve Ogolla, because you've observed quite a bit of elections, and in Juja we saw a bit of chaos, and there are claims that they might have been instigated by some security forces. One chairman, Wafula Chebukati, had a say on that. We'll be listening to him shortly. But what did you make of this as we ready for the general election, which is in about 14 months or so?
Thank you, Sam. Two things from the Juja by-election. Number one, credit must go to the winning candidate. Remember, whereas the party plays a critical role in boosting the candidate's chances of election or electoral victory, it is the candidate's agenda and charisma that can also contribute significantly towards that success. So I don't think it's fair to shift the glory from the winning candidate and then reassign it somewhere to DP William Ruto or someone else. But having said that, in all honesty, this is something that should worry Jubilee Party, because Juja and most of Mount Kenya is a well-known Jubilee zone. So if Jubilee Party can lose this seat, then it could have very well signaled the waning fortune of the party in the region.
Right, and Senator Halole, of course, there's been celebration in your camp. Never mind that the candidate that won in Juja is from PEP, but there is a word that you're working together with the party from UDA. What did you make of these results, and do they mean anything? Do by-elections mean anything ahead of a general election that is so close?
The celebration was for good reason. And the one confirmation that came from that particular result is that the power of the people is greater than the people in power. You know, that result in Juja, in Bonchari, and Ria wards was despite the might of the so-called the system or deep state. They tried everything to make sure that the result was in their favor, but the people defeated them.
What is that they tried?
You saw the heavy presence of the police. You saw how, under the right watchful eyes of the police, the governor of Kiambu, Nyoro, stormed the tallying center and actually caused the tallying center, the tallying process to be stopped. If the police was not helping Nyoro, Nyoro would not have ended. With a couple of goons, all those policemen who were there would have stopped him. So it is because Nyoro was carrying out the brief of some of the interested parties, some of the players in the system.
Would the police practically stop a governor of a county from entering the tallying center?
Precisely. You can actually facilitate him to go into the center and ask him, you might go in yourself with your deputy governor or your PA and two other people, but not allow him to walk into the tallying center with a gang of goons, which is exactly what the police did. And this is a replica of what we saw in Matungu when the Senator of Kakamega was accosting officials of IEBC in broad daylight, in fact, walking away with ballot boxes and ballot papers. So this result was despite that serious attempt by the police.
And obviously the investigations ongoing in the case of Matungu, I believe, as well as the Juja case. But let's listen to what Chairman of IEBC, Wafula Chebukati, said in regards to that.
But let not the security arrangements be the weakest link in this operation of elections. I would want to see a situation where all the information emanating from security, all the commands, the operation orders are shared with the Commission before they are issued.
Unfortunately, as long as we continue militarizing democracy, the voter turnout will always be low.
We shall respect the verdict that IEBC will come up with because we are strong believers of democracy.
And Steve Ogolla, of course, the last person to speak there is the governor of Kiambu that Senator Khalwale here believes may have caused a bit of chaos. We saw some images, but it's still a matter under investigation. But looking at the two commissioners, that is Chairman Chebukati and Commissioner Gulia, they are very clear that we cannot continue to militarize operations of elections, that we cannot have security as the weakest link. What does this tell us? Yet we're just 12 months to the big election.
I think what IBC is telling Kenyans is that electoral management and the preservation of the integrity of the electoral process goes beyond the IBC itself and requires the input and participation of all Kenyans. We know, as a matter of fact, that part of the electoral bad practices here in Kenya is our electoral violence. We have a long history of electoral violence. I think what we don't get to do is to shine the spotlight where it should be focused on. Electoral violence is not always perpetrated by IBC. The electoral violence is a strategy used by political opponents or party or contenders to try and diminish or suppress voter participation, voter turnout and voter participation, and also to intimidate opponents, just like bribery and corruption in electoral management. These are questions that are outside the IBC, but what is curious or interesting is this, Kenyans always tend to turn a blind eye to their contribution to electoral malpractices and tend to heap all the blame on the IBC for the faults in election management. But as long as we continue to do so, as long as we continue to deny the reality that our elections are a matter of life and death, and the people that make our elections a matter of life and death is not only the IBC, but it's the politicians and the supporters, this country will take longer to reform the electoral process and the electoral system. So in short, it should worry us some. It is not surprising, but it should worry us that in a closely contested election, violence is almost always assured to erupt. And this is just an indication of what Kenyans can expect in 2022. I'm not saying that they should expect violence, but reasonably, because Kenyans have continued to take the law into their own hands. Maybe Governor Nyoro may have had a legitimate reason to intervene. Maybe he suspected possible electoral fraud. But the manner in which he stormed into that polling station, intimidating IBC officials, is not consistent with the preservation of the integrity of the electoral process. I expect a public outcry and a demand that Governor Nyoro be arrested and arraigned in court for interfering with the election management. But as always, the political parties, especially Jubilee, where Governor Nyoro comes from, is not concerned with that.
Right.
The winner is also not concerned with that because in this country, what we say in election is that processes don't matter. The results matter. The idea that processes don't matter, results matter, makes elections a matter of life and death because they know once you have the results, then you can fight to keep it that way, whether the process was falsified, was fraught with fraud and falsification or not. If Kenyans can reach a position where they can say processes must matter just as the results, and that is what the Chief Justice David Maraga said on 1st of September 2017, when they were nullifying the outcome of the election. They said, election is not an event. Election is a process.
Right.
And the process must comply with the law. But complying with the law is not a burden of IBC alone.
It is for everyone.
It's for everyone, but that is what we don't understand.
Okay. And Senator Khalwale, so looking at the outcome of different elections that have been held, the past few months, you'll see very low voter turnout, including Machakos senatorial by-election. In Juja by-election, there was a turnout of 18.9%. Out of 115,000, only 21.8 thousand came out to vote on that particular day. And what is causing this voter apathy? I know in Western Kenya it was pretty higher than that, but what is causing all this voter apathy?
It is the normal trend. Turnout in by-elections is usually not as high as in the general election.
18.9 is quite low.
Yes, I understand, but given that that is the trend, the trend internationally, and even locally we have had the same experience, we shouldn't put too much weight on the voter turnout. However, what is important is what you spoke to at the beginning, the issue of violence. There are three players, namely the IEBC, the security organs, and the politicians and their voters. IEBC is helpless. They are actually right at the heart of the violence. They are the victims. But the people to speak to are the police, politicians, and their voters. Politicians and their voters attempt to form their own parallel security because they don't trust the police. Those are the people who are law-abiding. But the ones who are rogue, like Nyoro, they then form their own militias for purposes of causing violence.
Do you have any evidence that he formed his own militia?
Yes, I can give you a very good example.
That's a strong word.
Look, in the experience of Matungu, based on the clip that went viral, the IG actually issued an arrest warrant for Rashid Mohammed. But in the case of Nyoro, up to now they are telling us they are doing investigations. And yet, in both cases, some criminal activities were perceived to be taking place at the polling station and the tallying center. In the case of Rashid, there was a hot altercation between him and the election official, and it appeared like he was slapping that official. But in Nyoro's case, it was worse. He stormed the tallying center and caused the tallying process to be stopped for over 12 hours. And up to now, it has not occurred to the Inspector General that this was a criminal. We must treat Nyoro as a criminal for it to be a clear message to other big people.
Is it a criminal or a suspect?
Well, whether he's a suspect or a criminal
for you to be adjudged guilty, you have to be taken through the judicial process.
That's true.
Which hasn't happened.
That is true. But you see, we are saying these things because we are unhappy, we are helpless, we are in the opposition, whereby the same government that is supposed to protect us is actually fighting us. So we get angry by going to the conclusion, moving from the suspect to the criminal.
And Steve Ogolla, the question of voter turnout, I'm just looking at the numbers in Juja, and if Koimburi got 12,159 votes, that makes it 10.5% of the entire voter population in that constituency, meaning that he was elected by 10.5% of the registered voters. Should this worry us? Because if the voter turnout was 18.9%, the Constitution puts a referendum voter turnout at a minimum of 20% in majority of the counties. Should this worry us? And is it just, I mean, what is democracy when you have to look at such numbers when people have not expressed themselves?
I think it's up two things. One, I think statistics world over always show that voter turnout in repeat elections and by-elections is always low. Two, should it worry us? Yes. Because if you look at our democracy, it is a majoritarian rule where you expect that the person being elected should at least achieve a certain threshold if you at least half of the registered voters voting, participating in election and voting. But sometimes it does happen that the people who are electing the leaders are just 10% of the registered voters. So you get the majority of the 10%. So in fact, the majority of those who are present and voting almost always constitutes a minority. So it creates a misnomer of a majoritarian minority rule. Because the 10% denies the winning candidate the political legitimacy that he needs to govern the people or to provide the leadership. But again, our constitution does not make voting a mandatory exercise. But that is a debate that Kenya can have. Do we need to make voting mandatory, or do we need to continue sensitizing? I think I would go in favor of continuing to sensitize the masses that they need to participate in elections. The voter apathy that we see in our electoral processes surprises me because when people go to the ballot, when people are invited to go to the ballot, most Kenyans tend to shy away. They say, no, this election has been rigged, the outcome has been predetermined. I mean, we know the winner. But after the election, they complain about poor leadership. You cannot approbate and reprobate your role as a voter. Your role as a voter begins and terminates at the ballot. If you deny yourself the opportunity to influence the leadership choices that we make as a country, then I think you should do as the courtesy not to complain.
Yeah.
Because when you are given an opportunity to go and vote, the 10% that voted now have made a decision for the minority. The minority 10% have now made a decision for the majority 90% who have not voted. Yet the absent 90% will now raise issues around how they are being governed. I think Kenyans need to be sensitized that they need to take elections seriously and they always need to participate.
Okay, all right. And so what next, Senator Khalwale? Because we know that you have had negotiations with PEP in Kiambaa, so the UDA candidate will be there. But what is the strategy like moving forward to the general election?
PEP, so that I rest this issue, PEP is a party of the Hustler Nation. And the overall commander of the Hustler Nation is the United Democratic Alliance. When we chose not to field a candidate in Juja, it was purely because of tactics. We do not want to add fodder to the lie that the deputy president, who might be associated with UDA, is not respecting the boss. So because Juja, so to speak, is the bedroom of the president, we thought it is not nice for the deputy president, who some people have it that he is associated with.
How true is that? Because we saw a tweet from the deputy president congratulating Koimburi and saying that Hustler Nation has won. I mean,
he might be that they might be friends. You know, you never know the actual relationship about people between two people. So the point I'm making on a strong basis is that purely out of respect, we didn't want it to look like the Hustler Nation, which enjoys a lot of support from the deputy president, is giving the deputy president and the president an opportunity for them to go into a contest. So we stopped back.
So what happens in Kiambaa? Are you going to get into that contest? Because Jubilee
in Kiambaa now,
is clear.
We are caving in to the pressure of the people of Kiambaa. They're now saying, we want now to come out as Hustler proper. We don't want to come out as PEP. And this is why then the party leader of PEP, who is a ranked member of the Hustler Nation, said, let us accept the will of the people.
If I'm hearing you clearly, you say Hustler proper, so there's already factions within the Hustler Nation, or what do you mean?
By Hustler proper, I mean that some people, when they see PEP, they don't realize it is Hustler. The owner of the Hustler brand is actually UDA. And that's why when you go to our party headquarters, you'll find the emblem of the Hustler Nation. But PEP, the People Democratic Party associated with Omingo Magara, they are equally parties of the Hustler Nation. And this is nothing strange because
so
even
that a
under
coalition or they are individual parties by themselves?
Come again?
Are they individual parties or it's a coalition already?
They are parties that subscribe to the same mind. Like-minded parties, PDP, PEP, UDA, and others are on the way, are operating under the Hustler Nation narrative. And this should not be surprising, especially to people who know that in Jubilee, for example, There was Jubilee that people know, but underneath we had parties like PDR. And that's why today we have UDA, and none of the members of UDA who are in parliament, action has been taken against them for supporting UDA, because originally there is a coalition agreement between PDR, which is now UDA, and the Jubilee Party.
Steve Ogolla, what are we dealing with here when you listen to Senator Khalwale?
When I listen to Senator Khalwale, what comes out is that Jubilee Party has disintegrated, and the Deputy President has created an alternative power base. More or less, more like what you have in South Sudan, you have the SPLA in government and SPLA-IO in opposition. Is it a good thing? No. Is it justifiable? Maybe yes. Because you see, the Deputy President has active political ambition. The President does not. Because the President is serving his final term. At the end of his second term, he's going to retire into something else. The Deputy President has an active political ambition because he hopes to succeed President Uhuru Kenyatta. If he feels that somebody is constraining or limiting the space within the Jubilee Party, then I think it is just right and proper for him to create an alternative pathway to try and realize his political ambition. But the disintegration or the collapse of Jubilee Party is something that, in all honesty, Sam, cannot be celebrated. Because this country, if you look at Article 4 of the Constitution, it characterizes Kenya as a democratic multi-party republic. To be able to have a robust multi-party democracy, you need strong, stable political party system. But what we have now, and Honorable Khalwale will admit, that political parties are special purpose vehicles to be abandoned every 5 years. Then how do we strengthen and how do we grow our party democracy if everybody knows every time you have a challenge, you can create your own special purpose vehicle? I am not questioning the decision to break away from Jubilee. As a political actor, the Deputy President is well within his right to frame what he considers a strategic move to advance his political career. What I'm questioning is this. For how long shall our parties keep on disintegrating every 5 years or every 10 years as we go into the next election to change the leadership? I think that is a debate that I thought that with the promulgation of the new constitution, things might get better. Unfortunately, looking at PNU going into the 2013 election, then we had TNA, then we have Jubilee, then now you have UDF, and the other side you have NASA, you had CORD, going into NASA, and now NASA itself disintegrating into multiple parties, now have one Kenya alliance. I think the question, the most important question of constitutional and political relevance is this. Is there a need to have political parties in this country, or can we just coalesce around individuals and vote the election? Because it seems to me that whereas the Constitution demands a strong and stable political party system, what matters is coalescing around certain individuals. So some people will coalesce around DP Ruto, some people will coalesce around Honorable Raila Odinga, some people will coalesce around some third formation. It is this personalization of our party system that is creating a problem and stagnating our maturation as a political democracy.
Even though it may be argued, because if you had to look at the democracy of the country since 2002, no single party has won an election and remained as such, because in 2002 it was the NARC. In 2007, President Kibaki defended his seat on PNU. Then came in TNA URP in 2013. Then in 2017, they were in a different party by the name Jubilee. In as much as you say CORD has been changing the coalitions, the parties have remained. So does it mean that as long as you win an election, you will have to move to another house?
The business of politicians is to win elections, have power to govern the country. And you can only do that by persuading the voters. Now, the challenge has been not the Constitution, which has already addressed the issues raised by Ogolla. The challenge has been the modus operandi. In the past, people have won elections because of ethnic mobilization through tribal kingpins. This is why in Nairobi, when the kingpins then announces that I am a member of Mbwa Party of Kenya, all members of his tribe follow. Because the party that he has is supposed to mobilize his ethnic community. It is very refreshing that today we have started a new conversation whereby we are insisting, let us not mobilize our people based on their ethnic backgrounds, but let us mobilize their people based on their needs. And this is why we are saying, clearly, hustlers have got an agenda of ensuring that their interests are factored into the very manifesto that will be implemented by the government. And you can see we are aggressively going around the country, of course with difficulties because of the corona health, public health protocols, to ensure that the people now are informing our manifesto before we write it. We would like to move the conversation from the traditional, and I know you remember your good old days at the university. You used to shout student power. And when politicians left the university like us, we converted it and called it people power. And it ended there. We now want it to be people, power, and profits, so that the profits that emanate from that, exercising that power, can be shared by the people instead of the profits being shared by a few people, and in this case, the traditional dynastic families that have been sharing the profits of the Republic of Kenya.
And of course, at the side of your screen, you see the images of the tour of Raila Odinga, the ODM party leader. He was in Kisumu yesterday, where he drummed up support for the BBI process. He says that despite the court ruling or the court judgment of the 5-judge bench, the process continues, and it's just a hurdle that they'll be in a position to get over. But Steve Ogolla, when you listen to Senator Khalwale, that you're changing the narrative from ethnic mobilization to need-based mobilization, is it a reality, or when the day comes, the day of reckoning, the 9th of August 2022, people will troop back to their ethnic persuasions?
I think there are two things. One is charisma, and the other one is politics of betrayal. On charisma, I think I like the hustler narrative. It's a very attractive political narrative that, in all honesty, galvanizes grassroots support based on the daily issues and experiences that Kenyans are facing. Is that a good thing? Yes. If we can have a narrative in the form of the hustler narrative, conversations around what ails the country and what Kenyans can do about those issues that are ailing the country, I think that is where the country should be going. But let us also make an honest admission, and Mheshimiwa Senator Khalwale knows this very well. The hustler nation is only a hustler nation because of the charismatic leadership of the deputy president. I can tell you some. Understanding the changing nature of our politics, it is not beyond imagination for President Uhuru Kenyatta and deputy president to close ranks. And if they close ranks, the deputy president will remain in Jubilee Party, and that will mark the death of the hustler narrative. In short, if Deputy President William Ruto, with a well-known energetic mobilizer and a charismatic leader, decides to abandon the hustler narrative and decides to shape his views, his political viewpoints and interest within the Jubilee Party or another formation, I think most of his supporters will abandon that hustler narrative. So what I'm isolating is this. The hustler narrative should be a narrative to be mainstreamed by every political leader in this country. Because for sure, it is a conversation that answers the needs of this country. In fact, the entire 9-point agenda in the handshake should be part of the hustler narrative agenda. Because we're talking about the ethnicizing and depolarizing our politics. We're talking about a service-driven political agenda, an issue-based political agenda, away from the normal ethnic balkanization, zoning, and party patronage, and politics around ethnic kingpins or personalities. I think the Hustler narrative is a good narrative, but I also know the Hustler narrative, it is what it is because of the clout of Deputy President William Ruto. But I wish them well. I don't see how the Hustler narrative antagonizes Kenyans. It seems to speak to the issues that Kenyans want. My only appeal, every political leader should make the Hustler narrative a national conversation. That way, we can have an issue-based competition going into 2022.
Steve, one might ask, are you endorsing the narrative then?
No, I'm not endorsing the narrative. Neither am I decampaigning the narrative. You know, it is not possible to decampaign the Hustler narrative to the extent that the entire Hustler agenda speaks to the issues affecting the common mwananchi. How can that be a bad thing, Sam?
Okay.
Even the handshake itself, no, hold on. Even the handshake itself, the discussion, the original idea around the 9-point agenda, how can that be a bad idea? I think the issue always is our leaders have excellent ideas, but in pursuit of all those ideas, sometimes those ideas get hijacked by short-term political interests. When those short-term political interests intervene and we lose focus on the main idea, then that's how we get stranded from the beginning. But the Hustler narrative, to the extent that it supports the ideas, the common issues facing Mwananchi with the Wanjiko, I think it's a good thing that must not be decampaigned. It must actually be internalized by all the political leaders, because that is where the country should be going. Because after they have internalized the Hustler narrative, now we will then be able to have a conversation on who is best among the hustlers in this country.
Okay.
In that context, Raila Odinga could be a hustler, William Ruto could be a hustler, Kalonzo Musyoka could be a hustler, to the extent that they are fighting for common mwananchi. But, as we know, the hustler narrative for now, Sam, is sort of closed around the personality of Deputy President William Ruto. I want Honorable Halwale to tell us, how can we depersonalize the hustler narrative so that it's not only synonymous with DP Ruto? That is the big question.
Well, and I think that's a good question to be the final one on this segment, Senator Halwale, because yes, you actually say that the Deputy President supports the Hustler Nation. That's why PP was winning in Juja. That's why you're going into Kiambaa. And it's therefore clear to see, even Koimburi himself says he's thanking the Deputy President. So is it a possibility that we'll reach a point where we'll say that people can go and win based on ideologies and the parties they represent, regardless of who is the leader of that party or inspiring that narrative?
My brother, I don't think you know Steve Ogolla as well as I do. When you see him struggle on a small issue like the Hustler narrative, it confirms the difficulty many people have in trying to appreciate a very simple thing, namely, being a member of the Hustler Nation is not like putting on a jacket, which you can put on, be seen wearing it, and you can put off. It's a way of life. The Hustler narrative is a way of life. There is no way William Ruto can abandon the Hustler Nation narrative, because that is his life. That is my life. That is your life. That is Ogolla's life. What do I mean? I mean that as the world has moved into the service sector economy, the people who traditionally used to have a sense of entitlement that either the industry that employs the majority of the people here belongs to my father or belongs to our family, it is our dynasty, are finding themselves in a situation whereby even their own returns are based on service sector. They call it, I was reading another book, they call it the economy of the 1%, for the 1%, by the 1%. Now, who are these 1% in Kenya? In the 1% in Kenya, they are the 3 dynastic families plus the 2 other pretenders who think because they work with the children of those dynastic families, they are also themselves.
Who are those now?
The 5 principles of the BBI handshake One Kenya Alliance. There are 5 of them. So some of them are genuine Zions of the dynasties. The others are pretenders because they work with them. In those old days where I grew up from, you could go to look after cattle because your father has got some, or you could go so as to play with the other boys and you would still say you are taking care of cattle.
Okay, I wish you had more time to engage on this. I'm just looking at your jumper. It reads something Ichilishi. What is that?
A bull. A bull. Ichilishi is a bull. Yes.
Is the choice of color anything to go with UDA?
Yes, UDA has got beautiful colors of green, black, and yellow. And today I chose to come in yellow, partly because of UDA, partly because yellow is the color of Brazil, and Brazil plays in yellow. I love Brazilian soccer. And more importantly, it's very cold out there.
Okay.
This is the only warm outfit I was having in the house.
So let's just say it's the only warm outfit you got. All those others explanations. And thank you so much, Senator Boni Khalwale and Wakili Steve Ogolla, who's joined us via phone. Up next, we speak to Martha